Welcome to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand, and today we have a great guest on the podcast by the name of Patrick, and he and his partner are sailing all over the East Coast, just jumping right into this whole lifestyle. And Patrick and Michaela, they have a YouTube channel called Patrick and Michaela, and really great. Again, it's on the beginning side of things, but they do a fantastic job of putting these episodes together, sharing their adventure in a very authentic and real way. So I definitely would recommend checking them out. They are definitely a team-driven couple and are really learning the ins and outs of everything. And Patrick and I, we actually get into quite a bit of, how to make this sort of leap and why, and a little bit of sort of that balance between chasing money and chasing life experience and what's worth more and where is the real value. So it was definitely a very interesting conversation. Before we get into that, I guess a little update here. We're still stuck. I had a different intro all sorted out for this podcast a while ago because I was supposed to already be out at sea and all that sort of stuff. But essentially, the weather gods are making life a little difficult to get out of this boatyard. And essentially same old story. The water levels really low right now. Nobody's come or gone out of this place in quite some time, but we're holding our own. We're staying positive. We're getting things done that we thought were not going to be possible in our time frame and stuff. But the only kind of downside really that I've been looking at lately is the forecast. The idea was trip to Bermuda. That is looking more and more questionable because the time frame for that was to get out there well before Christmas. And essentially what we've got over the next 24 hours, that's when a pretty sizable low. So, tomorrow in the afternoon, the low starts to move over us. And then all Wednesday, it's going to be blowing, gusting up into the 50s. Just off of Cape Hatteras, coming out of the south, and then pushing more out of the north Wednesday night, and then Thursday pushing away from the coast. And so it does kind of almost look like if the water levels get juiced up a little bit, might be able to jump in the water, but at the same time, then we get our blast from the east. Now, this system is just sort of coming out of the east-northeast and will be hitting us this coming weekend, and that will for sure, as long as it holds true, that's going to fill up the sound and give us plenty of water to get us going and definitely get us in the water, hopefully by next Monday. So we might have a whole nother week here on the hard, which definitely widens the scope when it comes to things we can do and stuff like that. So we'll see how things go. If there's a way to jump out and get going. James and I were planning on posting up down in Beaufort, and if we couldn't find a window to get out to Bermuda, then we'd go ahead and find some other avenue to at least get out there and do multi-day sailing, sort of offshore or as close to it as possible. But if not, then it looks like, another week, and then we'll have, again, the forecast is pretty far out, but it looks like we'll have a pretty good opportunity to not only get out of here, but then stage for maybe stage for a big sail. We'll have to sort of see. In any event, that's sort of the game plan, and that's where we're at, trying to keep the old positivity level high. There's been a huge amount of emails and support thrown our way, which has been fantastic. We've had actually some food and liquid items delivered to the boat. Shout out to Joseph. That's fantastic. And a lot of extra Patreon family members have come in. Really appreciate that. So super, super stoked. You get down, you need a little team effort, you need a little help here and there. And, I can't thank the listenership enough for thinking of old J. Rome sitting in this boatyard day after day, sort of just waiting and wanting and all that sort of stuff. But I'm doing good. I'm making it mental fortitude and all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, it definitely makes my day. So I really appreciate it to all those people who have thrown a little something my way. I really appreciate it. But without further ado, my conversation with Patrick. Oh, wait a minute. Almost forgot my little shameless plug here. Jeez Louise, it's an early one. I'm listening to the birds chirping. But like I always say, if you want to help support this podcast and future adventures aboard the Mighty Sparrow, well, consider checking out the links in the description. We'll also put something in there for the YouTube channel for Patrick and Michaela as well. But Patreon, one-time donations via PayPal, Venmo, all the merch, the shirts, the books, all that sort of stuff make for great stocking stuffers. So check all that sort of stuff out. Plus, sailinginto.oblivion.com for information about speaking engagements. And coaching and all that other stuff. The speaking engagements, I did get an email recently asking just to basically describe kind of what I do and what my presentations are all about. And I thought, you know what? I get that question enough that I think I might want to just take a hot second and explain essentially what I do. I have 2 or 3 different types of presentations, but essentially I have a number of clips and like just little video segments that I weave together with a narrative. And I've done it enough where it's pretty much, I don't want to say seamless, but it's pretty darn close where I'm almost finishing the sentence I'm saying in the clip and going right into an explanation of what is going on. So I try to weave a very exciting, sort of compelling story. Also giving some of the insight into what I was dealing with mentally, how I kind of overcame a lot of that stuff, and the lessons that I took away that I sort of am able to bring back to everyday challenges that we all sort of face. But, doing it primarily to share an incredible experience. So I do that for the trip around the world, and then the more corporate sort of based one is definitely the turned upside down, the disaster voyage of 2022, because that one really, when you screw up and when you fail at something, that's when you learn the most valuable lessons. And that one really circles around sort of mental focus and the tools needed to deal with things like anxiety and overwhelming odds and uncertainty, but then also really the steps to becoming kind of a very resilient person in the face of any sort of obstacles, and what it takes and what are some of the techniques to develop that, as well as an overall look at, our whole idea of technology and how useful and how to actually use it to our benefit instead of just thinking that it's going to replace us. And then obviously we get into exactly what happened on that voyage and the footage and all that sort of stuff for the night of the knockdown, and then essentially wrapping everything up with a good sort of motivator of, failure can't really be something that lets us or prevents us from chasing after the things we want. Failure can actually be one of the greatest teaching tools in the world, and so it actually should be invited rather than shied away from in a lot of ways. And so those are the 2 main ones that I like to do, and they, typically if I'm doing one within a year, I get invited back to do the second one. So it's very engaging, very fun, fast-paced, but also you're going to learn quite a few lessons and things like that when you get it. So the venues that I normally do are anything from schools and libraries to clubs and dinners and fundraisers and anything where you want to sort of spice the night up and get a good audience. It's a lot of fun. We always do a Q&A and like meet and greets and all that sort of stuff, sell the book, blah, blah, blah. And, it's definitely can turn an event into something pretty memorable. And obviously for the corporate stuff, it's what I like to think of as an inspirational but also value-driven presentation where you're not just being told to do something and this is what you need to do, but given an example of how it works in the real world, but also in a very, not abstract, but a very different sort of situation than most people are used to. So you get the C story, you get the lessons learned, but then you also get sort of the kick in the pants that you need to get out there and go chase after your dreams. That's it in a nutshell. So, all right, having said all that, now we can get into our podcast with Patrick. Here we go. Perfect. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Hey, and welcome aboard my little vessel.
Insane.
Yeah,
right?
I
hadn't even heard of you until 3 days ago.
That's it. Interview's over.
Yeah. Not a fan of the show. I could be getting on a podcast. I could go back and listen and be like, this is mediocre. But I doubt it, brother. Looking into you, I'm like, I can't believe the kind of people you run into just traveling on a sailboat. It blows my mind.
I know, right?
Where it's just it's just small. It's so niched, I feel like. But there's so many people out there.
And it's just entangled.
Yeah.
Because you meet some person, you can almost do that whole 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the more you're out doing it and the more time you're actually traveling and stopping in places like TJ's and stuff, the more it just gets more intertwined.
Yeah. I want to say Trout shared 4 anchorages with us on our way up the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I didn't meet him until this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, having Thanksgiving with him. I didn't meet him until...
It was the same for me because I initially reached out and we were doing just virtual podcasts.
Yeah.
He was, off in the Bahamas or whatever, and I was up in Michigan, and I think it was 2.5 years had gone by.
That's
and
crazy.
Finally, we meet right here the other day.
Yeah, but to think because I'm a pretty new sailor.
Yeah.
To think about I'm just gonna have Thanksgiving with a dude who solo circumnavigated 271 days at sea. My longest sail was probably 2 days, and I was beat afterwards.
Yeah, right. Well, it's always you have to get into that rhythm. Your body gets used to anything after a long enough time. But I have to say, you guys all made me feel pretty good. That whole night, everybody's like, "Dude, the legend." Because it's funny, in some arenas, most places where I do speaking stuff, people are really receptive, but there's always one or two of kind of these older sailors that I guess from what I can understand is they're sort of the top dog in the yacht club or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones that normally just come up and all they want to tell me about is their biggest, craziest storm and how they had full sail and 85 knots.
Yeah, exactly. It's measuring up instead of just appreciating that,
hey, let's share our experience.
Yeah.
So, but it was cool to be it's really cool to see sort of your generation. Because how old are you?
I'm 29, about to be
29,
30.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your 20s, I mean, it's so cool that you guys are all getting these boats and just going out and going after it.
Yeah.
And still, I mean, I definitely I got a few questions about, how you guys fund it. Because Trout and I talked a lot about his.
Yeah, totally.
Very lackluster. I'm not throwing shade on him by any means because he's got that vibe, but he's the only person I know that can leave with $20 and head to
just not a worry.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what was it? Was it Moxie Marlinspike maybe? Who was just you just got to go out there and do it. And the less you have, you'll figure more things out.
It's true.
By having tons of money, it's that's how you get stuck in a marina where you have an $150 an hour diesel mechanic fixing every little thing on your engine, and you never get to actually leave to sail. But if you just have a little bit, you're well, engine's broke, I guess I'll just sail. And I don't have the money to fix it.
Outside of that, outside of just initially fixing that engine that time, if you're going to go out on some adventure, what's going to happen next time when it breaks?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be and if you take the time to research it and figure it out and troubleshoot it and everything, then all of a sudden you get those skills.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like very compounding where like you learn a little bit about something, you start fixing things, and then you're like, okay, well, I did a little bit of fiberglass. And then like a bigger fiberglass issue comes up, and you're like, cool, I can probably do that. Yeah, it's like it's like I didn't know anything before, and I made this happen. So now I know a little bit. I can probably make that happen.
Yeah.
You know, and you just gotta. I feel like a lot of the times I'm like, you just have to believe in yourself, and then you can get out there and do it. You know.
Well, and I've always kind of tried to remember, especially when I was learning how to fix sails. I was always kind of like, well, I can usually just undo what I've done. Like if I put a bad patch on and it peels off or the stitching comes out, I can pull all the old stuff out. And it's same with boats. I mean, if you lay up some glass wrong, you grind it off.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're not going to sink the boat.
Yeah.
Making a decision.
And I'm very much so an 80% guy too, where I'm like, if something's busted and I can make it 80, like if I can do an 80% good job, well, it's better than it being busted.
Yeah.
You know, I like super small thing. I was like fixing holes in like my swim ladder platforms in the back. They're like called swim ladders. They're not really swim ladders though.
Right.
But I pulled them down, and like the 1/4 inch holes were probably like 3/4 inch because they just were wiggling. I think the kids of the previous owner were jumping off of them.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, which just, you know, sounds fun. I agree. But I was like, cool, I'm gonna like fiberglass this up, and then I'm just gonna put a 1/4 inch hole, and then I'm like, well, the worst that could happen is I have to do that again. But I'm like, hey, just having a smaller hole is better than having the bigger hole. So we're at least moving in the right direction. Even if it doesn't fix the fact that water still leaks in sometimes. We're still like
slobbing all over
yeah,
the place, right?
yeah. At least we'll have less water in that hull that I'll have to pump out every month. You know,
you strike me as definitely optimistic, positive outlook kind of guy. Well,
absolutely.
Before we just keep going, can you just give us the audience like a little background on the boat you have, and then when you started and how you wound up here? 3-part.
Cool. Yeah. So the boat we have is a 1987 Prout Snow Goose Elite named Talia.
Very unusual boat.
Yeah. One of the first, I think, like cruising catamarans.
Yeah.
So really overbuilt. Like when Trout came over to help me with my rigging, I feel like a lot of cats have like 3 pieces of rigging line.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I think we have 12, you know?
Yeah.
There's like a ton of rigging on this boat. So they were like super overbuilt because, you know, it was the 80s. They started building these cats, and they really didn't believe in them a ton. So they were like, we'll just build them.
They burrowed them up.
Yeah. So yeah, unusual boat. I would say like we kind of landed on it by chance as we were like, we probably looked at 1,000 boats online.
Yeah.
So I guess like backstory, it's like my wife and I, Michaela, we were living in a van. I came across like our Sailing the Vagabond video.
Yeah.
I was always like, I love like moving around in this van. I always want to be by the water, but it's tough to get a van by the ocean. Sometimes it's easy to get the van by the ocean. Kind of tough to get it like off the beach.
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've seen some videos where people get stuck in like not only vans but RVs.
Yeah, so I was like, cool. We have the right idea of what we're doing. We just have like the wrong vessel for it.
Oh, nice.
You know, so then when I discovered like people living aboard, especially like the dreamy style of it, you're like, okay, we could do that. Like we could figure this out.
And there's a lot of similarities between being in a van. I mean, you know,
we bought an empty van. We built it out with the help of a friend. But you know, you learn a lot of the 12-volt electrical. You learn about plumbing. You know, you learn about like some mechanic stuff, and you're like, oh, like a lot of woodworking.
Did your van have a diesel?
Yeah, it was a diesel.
It was. Okay.
I fortunately didn't have to fix anything on that engine for the year we owned it.
Yeah, they're a little less finicky, if you will, than boat engines, I think.
Yeah. So far my engine's been good, except I ran into issues with the water cooling, which is like I think kind of common. But we figured it out.
Was it your impeller?
Impeller was okay. The hose that we had was too big, really. So like the pump size for it couldn't crush the air bubbles.
Oh, so you were getting like an airlock essentially.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm so easy to sidetrack.
Oh no, that's
so,
fine. This is just a convo that we can just go anywhere. I don't have any these aren't notes. This is my list of what else I still have to do.
Yeah. The ever running list.
Oh
yeah.
my god, yeah, it never stops.
So we sold the van. We went and backpacked for a year, and then started. I was like, cool.
Where'd you go backpacking?
We did 2 months in Mexico, Mexico City, and then Zihuatanejo.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, and then we did 9 months in Asia. Which
Whoa.
was a ton of fun.
Like all over, or
We did
China proper?
We flew into Singapore, so we did Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Japan, and South Korea.
Jeez, were you doing YouTube videos back then too?
Yeah, we were like doing like travel vlogging stuff.
What?
But
Man,
it was like babies for like. It's funny because you're always like improving and stuff, but you look back at like the stuff you were making back then, and you're like, oh man, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know how to talk to the camera.
Go back like 400 videos, and you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that was.
But you can't delete it because it's for posterity.
Yeah. So then once we got into the sailing stuff, it was like cool. We actually knew how to like. Michaela does all the editing, and she's a creative.
Great
I
job,
think
yeah.
so. She. I think really picked it up and learned a lot, and I think our videos are great.
Dude, they are. That was sort of the coolest thing because I mean everybody except for maybe Charlie, everybody's got kind of these videos. So before we had our dinner, I was able to kind of peel through, and I'm like, just peruse a little bit.
Yeah.
And man, they're just so. I was like, I just want to sit here and watch all these.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, yeah. I don't know. I would say like we're just doing it for fun.
Yeah,
Because like if you're not having fun, you shouldn't do it.
totally.
But we really like have found like a lot of community from it, and like have met so many people, and it's just like a really rad time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did Asia for a year, and then we flew back into LA. We bought a car. We road tripped across the states to the East Coast, and then started looking at boats. But we stopped in Chicago for 2 weddings, and we had like kind of a punch list of mostly like 33 to like 36 foot monohulls because we had no sailing experience.
Yeah.
We had I think
Just going for it.
Yeah, I had been on sailboats probably like 5 times, but mostly like people being like, "This is what a sail we're sailing," but like I wasn't really doing it.
Yeah, you're just sitting there like, "Oh, this is pleasant."
Yeah, like this isn't so bad.
A little different when you're the captain.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I never went out when it was storming because nobody would take you out on a sailboat to have a good time while it's storming.
Yeah.
So we were very much so like, okay, we'll find like kind of like a cheapish monohull. We'll like something that'll be good for like 1 to 3 years as we learn to sail, beat up on it or whatever, figure out how to do it, and then we'll look at like a next boat. And as we were sitting in Chicago, we just stumbled across this Facebook post. And I like knew of the Prouts beforehand, but like most of them that I looked at were like probably in like the 50 to 60,000 range and like kind of in rough shape.
Yeah.
Like probably needed like quite a bit of love, another 20, 30
what
grand.
year were they built approximately? Like 70s?
I want to say, so like the Elites started in 86.
Oh, 86. Okay.
But
still, that's old now, though. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, I think my boat's like a 1987. What's a Prout Snow Goose 37, but it's also 37 years old this year, I think.
Oh, wow.
So it's
that's
like
cool.
kind of funny.
Yeah.
But before that, they had like a non-elite version, which I think is just like 1 foot.
Smaller.
Yeah, less width. And I think they were making those, I think, like maybe at the late 70s.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not like an expert for sure.
Right.
But we came across this one that this family was living on, and it seemed really well kept, and it was like turnkey.
Yeah.
Like had the water maker, had the power system. There was basically nothing we needed to do. Like like the engines from 2016, like 2000-ish.
Oh, nice.
Hours on the engine. So I was like, okay. I think if we got this, because I think in my head, after buying like a totally empty van and then spending like 3 months building it out, it was very much so like there's a difference between like buying a sailboat to sail and buying a sailboat to like work like to fix
A project,
sailboat,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I was very much so like I want to buy a sailboat because I want to be sailing. I want to get out there. I don't want to
Right.
spend like a year or something
Well, and that's the
knocking
thing.
out a bunch of projects.
Most when people are kind of coming into it, or when you're like switching from one boat to another, it's one of those things where we're all faced with it because you're looking at price tags, and usually that's indicative of if it's a really cheap price, you're going to have to work on it more, and if
Yeah.
it's really more high end boat and it's turnkey, it's going to be more expensive. But essentially, what you're buying is your time back.
Yeah, exactly.
To not have to grind it out in the yard for 3 months.
Yeah, it's like how much is it worth it to just get it and get out there?
Yeah.
So yeah, we came across this turnkey boat. It was in Charleston. The weddings just wrapped up, and we were like, guess that's the first stop.
Nice.
We went and saw it. That was the first boat we saw, and we were like, man, that seems like it. We talked to some folks. They're like, you're insane. Like,
Oh, I'm sure,
they're
right?
like, go look at more boats. They're like, it's a big boat for two people who have no sailing experience. It's an odd boat because it's a catamaran but doesn't have two engines.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's like, I mean, at this point, I feel very confident in maneuvering it around.
Yeah,
but like
you're
having
gonna gain that skill.
having to like use this drive leg to like move to like really like maneuver in like close quarters. I think for a lot of people is like very strange.
Well, so does that mean essentially do you have like two steering wheels, one for the engine and one for the rudder?
Yeah, so there's like this steering wheel that's like all hydraulic and that moves the rudders. And that you can basically use them if you're like going, I think it's like 1.5 or 1.7 knots because you'll have enough water flowing.
Yeah.
Beneath or like through them that you can steer. But anything below that, there's like just a lever that will go, port and starboard, and that'll turn you. It's just like a mechanical kind of device.
Yeah.
That's just like hooked up to a cable, and you can move the drive like 30 degrees, kind of like either way.
Right.
So with that, you can kind of like, you can really kind of like get a lot of control of the boat while going really slow. So then it's like, okay, picking up a mooring ball is super, like not super.
It's almost like
but it is easy.
Form of like a stern thruster in a way.
Yeah,
because it kind of can kick you side to side a little bit as well as bump you forward.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, well, I can like I can throw this thing all the way port, kick it into forward, and then I can throw it all the way starboard, kick it into reverse, and just spin around.
Right.
Just like give it enough till you start going forward.
Well, and those skills they're absolutely invaluable. Like that's one of the big things that I work with a lot of people when they first get into sailing.
Yeah.
They buy the boat and they're kind of like maybe they crash into something or they're like, holy cow, this is way more than I thought.
Yeah.
That's like the fundamental is like, let's just go in and out of the slip. Let's mess around in the fairway. Let's just get to know, just like if you were parking a car.
Yeah.
You get that spatial awareness, and then, dude, you become an expert.
Yeah, you get a feel for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of got told like, don't buy that, and also people are like, the resale value on those boats is like because nobody's looking for them. It's gonna be tough.
Well, you never know; they could come back into fashion.
Yeah, exactly.
You could
bring
be
it
the trend,
back. Yeah,
with that YouTube
Everybody
channel, dude.
wants a Prout now. But yeah, like we went onto one other boat. It was like a Lagoon 380. Definitely needed some love. I don't think like anybody had really been using it over the last 3 years or something. Well, we saw the boat, the Prout. Her name was Mary at the time in Charleston. We were like, I don't know, kind of love that boat. Like, loved everything about it. Went on. It was nice to see like a family living on it because you're like, like if we have a family in the future or whatever, like, could make that work. Like it's a way more beds than we need if we want crew, whatever. Like, you can kind of put yourself in their spot.
Does it have 4 cabins?
It has 3 cabins.
3 cabins.
It's like 2 stern bunk rooms that are probably like a full size bed. Like you could fit 2 people in there, no problem. Then on the starboard forward side, you have like a bunk room where it's like a smaller bed, and then also a bunk bed. That you could like toss a child on for sure. And then there's 1 bathroom.
Oh, okay.
And on the other side. So
gotcha. Oh, okay. Is that a pretty big bathroom then?
Yeah, it's like a decent size.
Nice.
Technically, you can shower in there, but we don't shower in there because we
It's
get
a
everything
mess.
wet.
I know. You technically are supposed to be able to shower up in here.
Yeah. We just
Yeah.
use a wash down off the back
Dude,
of the
yeah, a gallon jug with holes poked in the top. And you can heat up some water. It's great.
Yeah, we just use a garden hose attachment
Nice,
onto a hose,
nice.
like a 3-foot garden hose
I've been
attachment.
thinking about doing that for the cockpit for a lot of years, but I just it really wouldn't be that hard. There's old piping that went to an old water heater that
Yeah.
I got rid of, and it's just right there in the engine room. But
Simple as.
one day.
Yeah, so we looked at that lagoon. We were like, not feeling this at all. Somebody told us like, you should go look at some leopards. But all of these boats also were like $300,000.
Dude, yeah.
So I was just like, no. Like lots of people were like, you're working, like you should buy some, like you can finance something, it'll be fine. Like, but I was like, I don't want to be trapped in like working for a boat. I was
Right.
like, I want something, and like,
I want a boat, not a house.
yeah, and I
Not
want
a mortgage.
Yeah, I want something that I'm like, if I really want to just dip, we can just do it.
And we're out.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm done. I don't want to look at so I, like my career is like cybersecurity. Like I was like a cloud security engineer for years and years, and now I run like a consultancy, kind of just like helping like small and medium sized businesses, not lots, but a couple of startups like
Yeah.
build their security program.
Nice.
But I'm like, I hate one of the things that just like hit me so hard was like, I just hate being on a laptop.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend my life just looking at a computer screen.
Yep.
So that's where I was like, I don't want to get stuck into a spot where I have to be working to like keep this boat. So we found this product was at the top of our budget. We bought it for like just about $100,000, which is like the money we saved up while we were floating around Asia, because I was still working full time at a San Francisco startup job.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, this is like the most money we could spend and still have like a little bit of money for when something inevitably goes wrong.
Oh yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
It's a boat.
Yeah. So it was like, cool, we'll do it. But this isn't like a 1 to 3 year boat. This is like a 5 to 7 to 10 year boat.
Yeah.
Wow. Podcast.
Oh man. No, actually I had to turn mine off because mine went for a ding a few minutes ago.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Hey,
this is casual,
Totally. Say no, but this isn't, some fancy podcast.
Yeah. So that's how we got into we bought it in December 13th of last year, of 2023.
Okay, so December you're down in Charleston.
Well, so we actually bought it in Miami.
Oh, you bought it in Miami?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because he was still sailing south, because it was like
That's
getting
a
kind of
far
cold
nicer
spot to be.
Yeah.
So we
But-
bought, yeah.
Sorry, the last winter was brutal, like weather-wise down there. I was supposed to do a bunch of trips from Florida, and we had to cancel almost all of them because the how they call it like the Pineapple Express, but essentially like El Nino was pushing all the low pressure systems way further south.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if you guys got affected down there, but normally the systems that come off near like Cape Hatteras, like they are now, those were all down in Florida.
Okay.
All last winter, and it was brutal. Did you guys have like big stormy, squally days and just
For sure. We spent 3 months at a ball in Dinner Key Marina, like on a mooring ball.
Yeah.
Because
So you would have felt anything.
yeah. Which is, they're pretty exposed.
So
So
a few bouncy nights,
definitely a few bouncy nights.
questioning life choices, like what in the
Yeah, 100%. Because we couldn't move the boat.
right.
Because we got insurance, but we couldn't. We needed sign off from a captain that we knew how to like do stuff on the boat before we could
really?
move it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the previous owner, this dude named Casper, love him to death. He's still like a super great friend of ours. We still talk to him all the time.
Oh,
which is,
you're
like,
lucky, dude.
I know, like so
I
many
don't
people
have
were
that.
like on the post. He was like lifetime, comes with lifetime support.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, and everybody was like, BS. They're like, you buy that boat, your number, like as soon as that money hits his account, your number is blocked, buddy. Like that's how this works. And that has not been the case.
No, not always.
I have had things go wrong on the fly, like popping an anchor fuse and being like, dog, I don't like. I was like, there's no power going to the like the winch, or the windlass.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. He's like, okay. He's like, go into this box in this spare parts compartment. He's like, there should be like an 160 amp fuse. He's like, you need to change it right over there in the like electric cabinet.
Oh, you can just do it off memory.
Oh yeah, because it was all stuff he set up. He's like unlimited master captain trained up by Maersk.
Oh,
so he
there
like
you go.
and he's like, he's like a super brilliant dude, I think. So like he has this boat like inventoried still in his head to this day, where I'm like, how do I do this thing? He's like, okay, I have a tool for this exactly. Here, go look for it. And he's always spot on.
That's a wonderful resource to have.
Yeah,
for
especially
sure.
he gave us 3 days of lessons. So he actually helped us get some of that insurance sign off.
Yeah.
And then we paid for like another captain to come live with us for 5 days and teach us like a lot of the. We just docked for like hours at a time, or like just like motored up and down mooring fields, just like getting comfortable, like being close and how to maneuver the boat. And we did like a little bit of sailing. But then by the time March hit, I was kind of like, cool, I got to quit my full-time job. Like the consultancy's making like just enough money that we shouldn't be like burning through savings.
Right.
But I was like, we will never get to leave this. I was like, we'll be trapped here forever. If like I do this consulting and a full-time job, we'll never sail the boat. Yeah. Because it's like it takes, time just to upkeep a boat and fix the stuff that's typically going wrong.
And it's way harder to really be enthusiastic about doing that, like varnish jobs, after you've had to work a full day.
Yeah.
Like I've had to do it working up in the boatyard up in Maine. I mean, I was preparing for like these huge voyages while working 8 to 10 hours a day in the yard. And I still don't know how I was doing it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's like you're just on such a grind that then you kind of ask yourself like, well, what am I doing this for?
Yeah, I know, right? That's where the podcast would come in, because I could sit down like frustrated or whatever, and I'd sit down and do the podcast after doing all that.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, all right, I kind of feel like I'm just crushing it now.
Yeah, exactly.
I can do everything.
Yeah, I'm the man. I believe in myself.
I'm going to go collapse now.
Yeah. Time to get the hardest 8 hours of sleep of my life.
Right.
Sleep like the dead. We... So I feel like I'm just like rambling on about it.
No. I'm loving it, dude. No, so you're down in Miami.
Yeah, we got these lessons.
Like, dude, we got to go.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm planning to quit my full-time job. Michaela and I sailed twice around Biscayne Bay alone because we got this insurance sign off. Mid-March. It hits like kind of probably like end of March, early April. We sailed twice around Biscayne Bay, and I'm like, it's only 50 miles to Bimini. What's the worst that could happen? I talked to my buddy who was a sea tow driver.
Yeah.
He's like, I could get to you in 2 hours. The Coast Guard helicopter could get to you in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
He's like, just send it, brother.
Just go for it.
Yeah. So
shoot your shot.
Yeah. So we just went, which, you mentioned like Chasing Bubbles, and I like
great documentary.
Yeah,
Chasing
I never
Bubbles.
watched it.
Yeah.
And I watched it last night, and like so much of it resonated with me. Because like I worked downtown Chicago, working at tech companies, and
wasn't he on the Mercantile Exchange? Or something?
Yeah, he was a trader, and I'm in technology. I never worked at like a high frequency trading firm or anything like that. But I did like consulting jobs, and I did some contract work for like J.P. Morgan Chase, which is like right down there.
Mm-hmm.
But like it hit home where like he was just like, what am I doing? It's like I'm making this money, but I'm not living my life.
Yeah.
And then he bought a boat in Florida, and it was like, he was just like, oh, I'm going to learn to sail just a little bit, enough to just send it.
Yeah.
And I was just watching it now. I'm like, retrospect. I was like, man, that hits so close to home.
Totally.
That's where I was at. I was just like, we just got to go.
I got goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
That movie, I was just like, I remember seeing that. I think I was up in Michigan. And I didn't know what I was going to do and what trip and da-da-da. And the boat was probably on the hard somewhere up in Maine. And I was just like, dude, we got to take advantage of this time we got.
You don't have a lot.
No. Blink of an eye. And, chances are nobody's even going to know we were here 10 years after we're dead anyway.
Yep.
So what does any of it matter?
Yeah.
Let's go have some fun.
Yeah. go have some fun, go see the world, man.
I should say, do what you wanted, whatever you're dreaming about or whatever you're thinking about. What could ever be holding you back? Just go for it.
Yeah, like I'm not saying everybody should get out there and sail, but like everybody should.
Or like rack up $100,000 worth of credit card debt. No.
Yeah.
No, a Vegas, weekend might be fun doing that. But
Head your
consequences.
I'm in security, so my whole life is like risk management.
Oh, right.
So very much so, like, okay, well, there's like a reasonable amount of risk you can take.
God, have you seen that movie Along Came Polly?
No, I don't think so.
Oh man, it's got the guy who plays Zoolander. Shoot.
Ben Stiller?
Ben Stiller and Jennifer Aniston. But he is a risk assessment analyst.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, wow, but they go sailing on this billionaire's boat and going through this huge storm. Anyway.
Yeah.
You should YouTube it as a funny clip. Just put,
I'll check it out.
Along Cape Polly sailing.
Yeah.
But he's trying to mitigate the risk and everything.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like you can't, at some point, like risk management, there's like a tipping point where it's like you got to be reasonable about it, but you also have to like take a chance once in a while.
Yeah, right.
Because like,
nothing risked, nothing gained, or something like that. As I was saying about that.
But also, it's just I was gonna say, like going for the unknown is like I think one of the harder things for humans to do because
uncharted water. Yeah,
it's like so easy to be like, well, even if I'm not happy, I know the scope of my like unhappiness, and if I like head out, if I go do that thing that I'm like I want to do but I'm kind of afraid to do, I don't know how it's going to turn out. So people just end up stuck. And I think and like in my head it's like, oh, I'm a risk management guy, so it's like, oh, you got to play it safe. But at some point it's like playing it safe, it's like you'll never live that dream. So even like it's like, oh, well, it's only a 15-minute Coast Guard helicopter to save me if I'm drowning in the middle of the ocean trying to get to Bimini. At least I'm out there,
At least you're out there, right?
It's like, what's the worst that could happen? Well, maybe die, but most likely, like worst case is like you're getting saved by the Coast Guard, your boat sinks, and that's fine.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you talk about this because it's something I think a lot about, and I talk to a lot of people about. Sort of that idea of like, because people are like, why would you ever risk it all sailing, around the world, the Southern Ocean, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, to your point, you're facing something down that you don't know if you're capable. Like when I headed out into the Atlantic, I'm like 8,000 miles away from the Southern Ocean, and my anxiety was like tip top. I was just like, holy cow, it's still hurricane season. The weather was beautiful. And everything was fine, but I was like freaking out in my head thinking about the Southern Ocean.
Yeah.
And I started having to really like shrink down my focus and stop, because I was like, well, listen, if you just focus on day to day here and now, or just this ocean, in 4 weeks when you reach the equator, you're going to be a pretty seasoned sailor. Then there's going to be another 4 weeks.
Yeah. And
then you'll be at that scary Southern Ocean place, like a hardened freaking seamen out here, and that helped. I mean, and it's a lot easier said than done, being like, well, just don't worry about it and just focus on this. But like anything, it just takes practice.
Yeah.
And your brain is just like any other muscle. Like if you have these scary thoughts that come in your head and you're trying to block them out, well, you like replace them, or you think about something else, or you distract yourself. You keep doing it and doing it and doing it, then eventually you get really good at it.
Yeah. I think that's like kind of core meditation. Just practice pulling yourself back into the moment. Because like you'll spend your whole life worrying about, and like it's reasonable. It's like very normal to be anxious about something like going into the Southern Ocean.
Well, but it's anxious, just like I was telling them, I'm anxious about motoring down to Adams Creek.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, dude, I don't know. My old Perkins has been sitting out, This boat's been out of the water for like 18 months.
Okay.
And I know that when I put it in, there's going to be issues.
Always are.
And just saying that out loud, I think my heartbeat went up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know that
you can fix it.
We'll be able to fix it.
Yeah.
And TJ's not going to just be like, well, get out of here, like kick the bowsprit. If something really bad happens, we haul the boat back out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like you figured it out then, you'll figure it out now.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
You got to have that faith in yourself too.
Well, and I think there is so much hidden value in sort of facing down those challenges. You know, I think to go back to what you were saying before about like sort of weighing the risk and everything, there's like sort of a spectrum where you're essentially on one side, it's like super comfortable, super safe and secure life. You're wrapped in a bubble. You know, nothing bad is going to happen. And for some people, that feels great, and that's awesome, and that's all they want out of life. But on the other side, there's like, you know, base jumping, wings sailing, like swimming with great white sharks, you know, with a meat packet strapped to you. Super out of control, extreme, dangerous. And that person's probably going to live a very short life.
Yeah.
But you find what sort of area you're looking for on that spectrum. But if you've got those things where you're like, you're really kind of dreaming on this side towards the shark stuff, but you're too afraid. You're like, ooh, I don't know if I can handle those challenges. I don't know if I can handle the anxiety. I'm going to like go back towards Bubble Boy area.
Yeah.
Those are the people that I try and convince that, you know, when they go and take these challenges on, that's where they're going to get the confidence, because they're going to develop the skills, you know, whether or not they are able to fix or overcome the problem that's at hand. It doesn't really matter, because if you overcome it, then great, you already can do that. If you fail at it, you're going to learn why you failed.
Yeah.
So the next time you're going to hopefully do better and actually get it done. I mean, I tell people a lot when I learned a lot, obviously, on that trip around the world. But when I got turned upside down in the North Atlantic, I learned way more, way more. And it was all really fast paced. But as far as like crisis management and, you know, decision making under pressure and all that sort of stuff, like that skill set now is freaking awesome going forward.
Yeah.
And it gives me, because I think more than anything, and it's kind of a cheat code when you're on a boat, because you can't just, like, a big squall's coming at you. You can't be like, well, I'm going to let Larry over here deal with it. You know, I'm going to go down below, or I'm going to get helicoptered off of this boat. You have to like deal with it.
Yeah.
So we kind of are, I think we're fortunate. And that's one of the things that I always have trouble relating, you know, to people like in maybe like the business world or whatever, because they have that option. And it's how do you overcome the option of ducking a challenge?
Yeah.
And sort of, you know, wiggling your way out of having to actually deal with it. But again, that's where it comes where I'm like, if you actually step forward and go into it, that's the moment where you learn about yourself, but you also are going to develop skills.
Yeah. I resonate super hard with what you're saying. I think like it's like being comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like pushing that boundary, because like living in that bubble boy, well, one, I'll say it's an illusion.
Totally.
Like you
can still get hit by a bus.
Exactly.
Even if you're in a bubble.
Right? Like you can pretend, like you can have this whole life where you like think that so much of like what you're standing on is solid ground. But you know, like people get the rug pulled down from them all the time. You know, like hit by a bus, one thing, like get cancer. Right, like you know,
we're
you could
floating on molten lava.
Yeah,
just like straight down underneath us.
Like it could really, it feels safe, but like people's lives like fall apart all the time, and due to no fault of their own.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So it's like, like maybe don't swim with sharks in a meat suit. Unless you want to feel what it's like getting bit by a shark, and then in which case, like, yes, do that. Go feel it.
Didn't Steve-O do that from Jackass or something?
I bet he's done everything.
I think he has,
I watched Wild Boys way too young.
How is he still alive?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's like, and then get to another point you were talking about. It's like, I think it's an Alan Watts thing where it's like the swings of life is where you really kind of like start living.
Yeah.
You know, it's like live in the super high highs and live in the super low lows. Because like if your baseline is always just same steady
Oof.
day to day. I remember I was like 24 and I grew up like pretty poor. But I started reading like personal finance stuff when I was like 16.
Nice,
yeah.
dude.
So I got into this. I was like, as long as I can get a tech job and then I can make enough money, I'll like max my 401k every year. I was like 24 and I had like this spreadsheet like tracking everything.
Really?
But
wow,
yeah,
good for you, man.
Michaela and I got married at like 18, 19. I think I was making $13 an hour and rent was like $900 a month.
Oh, really?
Like it was. We started off. It was rough. It was like you're going to the grocery store with a calculator, like plugging in the numbers, making sure you're hitting like $75 up.
But can I answer real quick
Yeah,
to interrupt? Sure. So when you think back to that time though now, are you like, like it was tough, but those were like the good old days? Is there like a shininess when you think about it? Think about those times?
No.
None at all?
I would say there was a point in my life where I would be like, yes. But now I would say like I've gained a lot of empathy. And I'm like, man, somebody needed to help that boy out.
Wow. Interesting.
And like, unfortunately for this case, it was me. I had to help that boy out.
Right.
But overall, I'm like, man, nobody should have to be super poor. Like that's a bummer. Like having to figure out like how you're gonna eat.
Well, because for the last couple years, trying to do a lot of the speaking stuff.
Yeah.
It's a grind. I mean, you're getting rejected a lot when you do like cold calls trying to find new bookings. There's a lot of like they build up your hope by being like, oh, we're going to get you this and we'll get you that and and then none of it materializes and you're like, ugh. But then there's also like hours and thousands of miles on the road alone and staying in the worst motels. I had this motel I checked into. It was $54 a night and there were dolls, life-size dolls in the room.
Yikes.
Yeah. But I keep trying to convince myself that 20 years from now I'm going to look back on it and be like, oh, those were the days. Those crummy hotel rooms. But you're shedding a different sort of light on that. That's making me think, man.
Yeah.
Nice, Patrick. I like that.
Yeah.
That's why I love doing this podcast, man. You just never having an uninterrupted, like just face-to-face conversations. These are so rare these days.
Yeah.
It's so great, man.
Yeah, it's nice to just like relate to another human.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I remember going back to the story. It was like I was 24. I was like, if I just max my 401k and Michaela just maxed her 401k, I was like, we'll retire at 65 with like $21 million. Is that because of the way compound interest works? Like you can just throw $20,000 a year a person for 40. But then it's like I was thinking about it as like I was in that apartment more and more, and I look back at that and I'm like, what? Like that was like a kind of a breaking point for me almost, where it was like I'm gonna spend my whole life working just so that my kids can be super rich. But I'll never, like, I wouldn't have lived any life. And then you're like, oh my, like, this is crazy. Like, I have to, like, rethink a lot of, like, how we got here. Like the priorities, what do I actually envision because you only got one life.
Dude, and it goes by.
It goes by quick.
Woo!
It's like could spend those 40 years in the blink of an eye doing like just another year working, just one more year, just one more million. And it's just like I don't know. At this point, I'm like, no, it's crazy. And like you work in tech too, and you meet these people who talk to you like so casually about like, oh, my tens of millions of dollars. And I'm like, dog, you come to work every day and you're miserable.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it like breaks my brain. I was like, I've had people tell me like when I was living in the van, tens of millions of dollars in their bank account, could be doing anything. And I was like living in the van. We were like, it was a nice van. But
it wasn't exactly a $10 million van.
No, but they like somebody literally told me you're living my dream.
Right.
It like blew me away. I was like, I think our van, I think we bought it for like 25 and put 15 into it.
Yeah.
Because it was like all COVID prices. So a piece of plywood was like $90.
Oh my God, I know, dude.
Yeah. And I'm like, you could buy that $250,000, van that has literally everything.
Yeah.
And you could take that
brand new Sprinter.
Yeah.
van.
I'm like, you could take that van to like a hotel every night to sleep in if you wanted, like as a $10 million kind of
Wouldn't
person.
be the same though.
Oh, well, it wouldn't. But I was like, you could be living like why am I living your dream and you're not?
Yeah.
You know,
You've
but-
got all the means. I don't have any of it.
And then like the people just get stuck and be like, and like some of them are like the most miserable people I know. And sometimes you're in like these circles too. I remember a conversation where somebody was like, "What's like FU money?" And these people were like, like $5 million. What about? I was like, somebody was like, "I have a spreadsheet, $6 million because then I could afford it if one of my family members gets cancer or whatever." And like one dude who's like probably super rich, he was like, "1 more million is like the number that you'll always come to." Where it's just like,
I've heard that before.
Where it's just like no matter how much, you'll always like figure out another situation to keep you working another couple years, and it's just not a way to live, man.
Well, it equates perfectly to a lot of people that get stuck in marinas where they're just like one more antenna, one more safety line, one more replacing this.
The boat has to be perfect.
100%.
Yeah.
Take it from Holly Martin, aka Wind Hippie. She has done more than half the world by herself on a little boat that she
27 feet, right?
fixed up in her parents' backyard in Maine. And when you look at her videos, like that boat is in rough shape, but I would say that boat's like 70% there. Sparrow usually is between 50 and 70%. I mean, it kind of looks really nice, but that's because I like to paint it and stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as like, the amount of mileage and wear and tear on it, the engine, I don't know if that thing's ever going to work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good thing you got sales.
Yeah, I know, right? Thank God. I know. I'm like looking at the weather for getting down to Beaufort, and I'm like, I got to leave on a northerly just in case.
Yeah.
Because I don't have Towboat US or anything. I just have to basically hope that fellow travelers would come to my aid.
Yeah. I mean, you give us a call. We'll come get you.
Yeah, right. Come tell me, man. When are you heading?
A Monday. I think we're gonna start heading south again.
Okay, yeah. Well, and I guess that was sort of the train of thought I was thinking is, so you're down in Miami, and this is December, so you spent most of the winter down there, and then you started making your way up and traveling.
Yeah, we went to the Bahamas.
Oh yeah. Okay,
we spent 2 weeks in the Bahamas. I finished up my full-time job. We went Bimini to West End, terrible sail. West End to Great Sail Key, great. Then we made our way all the way to Manjack. We were trying to get to Green Turtle.
Is that in the Abacos?
That's in the Abacos.
Abacos, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the north, for the audience, that's the north
Part of the
western chain of islands, essentially. Because there's
northeastern.
The Abacos, they're the first ones you come to. So the northwestern.
Okay.
Of like the whole Bahamas.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like a triangle-ish,
Okay.
I guess. I think.
I'll believe you.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about ever. And then we got a line wrapped around our prop.
Ooh,
it
nice.
pulled the drive leg up out of the water and it broke the steering yoke.
Oh, that was why you had to go.
Yeah, so we
Gotcha.
flew our buddy Hunter out, who we met in Dinner Key. He's like a mechanic. He's been my lifeline since we bought the boat. He's the man.
Right.
We flew him out to Green Turtle Key, and I picked him up in the dinghy like 5 miles or whatever away, and then we sailed back to West Palm Beach so I could haul out and get somebody to weld the transom plate, and I could get the steering yokes. Right, the steering yoke. I bought 2 of them though, because it's like I was like, I'll never make this mistake again. But I was like, I'm gonna buy another one to keep under my bed.
Yeah, right.
And then ever since then we've been working our way up the East Coast. Hung out in Annapolis. We went and stayed with Casper, the previous owner. We flew to Denmark to pick up a couple more of those. We have like the Celette sail drive leg. He had 2 of them sitting in his garage.
Nice.
So I was like, what? He was like, I can sell them. We could split the cash. And I was like, I think I want those, because if like this thing breaks, I don't want to be out of luck doing like an outboard conversion or anything. Right. So I'm just gonna like fly there, put them in checked bags, fly back, and and see Denmark. So that was super fun. And just hanging out with him and his family for 5 days in this like small Danish town was awesome.
Nice, dude.
So now we have a couple of spares. One's in rough shape and one's in good shape. So feel good about that. But then, yeah, I think we did 1,500 miles basically, getting up to Annapolis, and now we're working our way back south.
Okay. And is plan to hop back over to the Bahamas for a little bit more of that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm like craving that. Like in my boat life, like when I think about like why am I living on a boat, it's always like the Bahamas. It's the tropics. I was like, if I could figure out a way to like just sell, like just get into underwater photography and just like sell pictures of sea turtles as like my living, I was like, that's the goal. I was like, if I can figure that out, like just be off of a laptop like 99% of the time.
Dude, just get that, create another Insta account, man.
There you go. We're working on it.
Yeah, right.
But like this year, it was very much so like, because I'm not like a super big planner anymore. I'm just more of like, I think we're gonna do this, and then we go do it. So it was like, I think we should get a sailboat. So
just
we bought
like
a sailboat.
old Trout.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, Trout's the man,
dude.
He's like totally wild,
legend, dude.
Yeah. He's like a person I think about. I mean, we talked about where he's just like, I got 20. I think like he arrived in Bellhaven with like $8. And was like, I'm gonna buy a burrito and a beer, and like then I'll figure out how to make money after.
Yeah,
like, that's
so
right. Awesome.
So cool.
That's like really living in the living in like
moment.
the flow of life, you know, just being like, it'll work out. Like I'll figure it out.
I'd be sitting there like, okay, well I've got to do this because I need to. I mean, I'm always concerned about money.
Yeah.
Always. I'm just like, part of it's trying to do kind of, you know, my own little business, and it's in the very early stages, so it's always like, ooh, is it gonna work? Is it not?
Yeah. Is this like speaking business or?
It's sort of between all of it. I kind of like to imagine it as like a multinational global like empire, but it's really small.
Just right now. It's going to get there, though.
But it has multiple divisions. So there's the speaking, and then there's the consulting and coaching.
Yeah,
and
I was
then
going to
there's
say.
the podcast, and then the content creation, and then the book and audiobook like royalties. So those are all the different divisions.
Yeah. You get like an octopus.
Yeah,
revenue.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And the cool part sometimes is that one, like if I go and do a lot of speaking, then the revenue from like the book sales goes up because people buy the book and blah, blah, blah. And so they kind of feed off each other. But they also, like when there's a drought and I don't have a lot of speaking, or, you know, one division is way down, the rest of them suffer as well because they do kind of depend on each other.
A little tied into each other, sure.
Yeah, but like being able to do like this instead of try and do all this stuff while having a 9 to 5. You know, because I did that for a number of years.
Yeah.
And mostly through COVID and all that, because you couldn't do any speaking stuff, obviously.
Yeah. What was your 9 to 5?
Working in a boatyard.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we'd grind it out 9 hours a day up in Maine, which was awesome, but it's really physical.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically being paid to lift heavy objects either with your arms or with a tractor or with a lift.
Yeah.
And you do that all day, every day. And it was, like I said, I mean, super fun, and it was a nice skill to sort of learn.
Yeah, you learn a lot.
Yeah, like when you haul your boat, it's the first time I hauled this boat, I was like, it was nerve-wracking. I was like, oh my God. Now I'm the guy who goes up, especially when I'm working at the yard, when we're hauling people, I go right up to the owner because I can see that they're nervous. And I'm like, hey, let me just explain. Because most yard guys, we're not really good communicators.
Yeah.
But me coming from the service industry and resorts and stuff, they basically dubbed me as the customer liaison up there. Because instead of saying, you know, screw you, or no, not screw you, what was that? Service is our middle finger.
Yeah.
and they do it in a charming way for sure. But, you know, I'm always like, well, let me just go communicate to that guy exactly what we're going to do instead of yell at him when he puts his fenders down coming into the slip because he doesn't need to. But he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
But you've done it a million times, you know, that sort of stuff. And it was kind of fun because the guys that I worked with, it's just not a customer service sort of oriented thing, not a smiley one.
Yeah.
And I think when I was trying to sort of turn the yard around a little like that, the guys were having more fun too, because
Yeah.
everybody else was a little happier.
Yeah, everybody's vibing a little bit.
Less disgruntled. Because, dude, if you got to go into work for 8 hours a day, man, you might as well have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Those jobs that are awful, it's just, that's when I feel like, it's just sucking my life away.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you have to find something that's at least bearable for you to, like, enjoy the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because, like, I can't, like, we live in a world that's so, money focused that it's hard to say, like, oh, just do whatever your dream is and make money that way, because it's just, like, not really attainable for most people.
There's the facts of life out there.
Yeah, but find something that you can do that, like, you feel good enough about that, like, when you finish that 8 hours a day or whatever, you can go do the things you love to do.
Yeah. 100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, and ideally, you're going to find something that is as much of a passion as it is something that you are good at doing.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher it. I want to say, like, there's, like, this Japanese kind of, like, is it Japanese or Chinese? I think it's Japanese, where it's just like you have to find, like, the intersection of, like, the thing that you're good at, the thing you can get paid for, and the thing that the world needs.
Ooh.
And then, like, you can,
like that third one.
Yeah, you can find something that will, like, be serving to, like, the world around you, you know, and you'll get paid for it, and you should be happy, because you're good at it or whatever.
Yeah, well, and I mean, because there's that whole idea of just do what your passion is, or
it's the fastest way to ruin a passion, I'll tell you that.
yeah, I was gonna say it can turn your greatest passion into, like, the worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But also even though you might enjoy it a lot, it might not be like any way possible to actually make any sort of living out of it. So then you're just going to be struggling. So that passion that you're desperately trying to have as your job is ruining your life.
Yeah, because there's, like, no faster way to ruin the thing you like doing than being poor because of it.
Because of it, yeah. You get resentful. You're like, what do I do? So, trying to make those, I think, wise decisions. And it sounds like you've got a pretty decent setup. How many hours a week do you say you would have to work where you have to stare at that laptop?
Yeah, I would say my ideal is probably more like 10 to 15 hours.
Yeah.
I would say, like, recently, it's like...
Does it fluctuate probably?
Yeah, it fluctuates a little bit. It's funny because, like, it's only 2 years old, me and this buddy have been doing this, and it started off as basically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, in the last 6 months or so, we, like, picked up a couple more clients, and now it's, like, more like 25 or 30 hours a week.
Oh,
and I was like, this is horrible. I was like, how did I, like, I'm,
I think
like,
that's my listeners just hung up.
Yeah, no. Where it's just
tell
like,
us how you've done this, sir.
Yeah, or it's just like, okay, well, well, it's funny to think about, like, going into the sales calls in the beginning, because we both had no idea how to sell. And, like, everything was so awkward, but now it's just kind of, like, totally fine.
Getting that rhythm. You develop those skills because you take the challenge.
But you got to go take those sales calls and, like, hang up and be like, oh, my God, I'm
like,
horrible.
That was the worst. It's like a comedian when they go up on stage and they bomb.
But you got to go bomb. Yeah.
They need to bomb over and over and over again.
Because that's how you hone the skill to do it. So then, like, now it's, like, me and, my partner, and then we have, like, a couple of subcontractors. So I'm trying to, like, balance, like, well, how do you run a business where you've now, like, have kind of hired some people to help and manage that? And I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to make sure this thing scopes back down, especially, like, coming into, like, being up in the cold or whatever, and, like, well, the weather's not always great. It's, like, not such a horrible thing, because Michaela has, like, a bare minimum of hours she needs to do to edit our videos.
Right.
If she's working, it's not horrible if I'm working. We're both just on laptops doing our thing.
Yeah.
But when, like, if we get stuck somewhere because, like, I have to be on a laptop, that sucks.
Right.
So I'm trying. It's like finding the balance of, like, boo hoo, Patrick. Your business was, like, so successful in the moment that now you have to work too much. Like Crimea River, because like you get like the monetary gain.
Those checks are so big.
But like my whole drive of this is like, well, I don't want to be on a laptop like my whole life. But I also, like, 2 years ago, I didn't have the idea that I was going to live on a sailboat.
Right,
and then like
right,
I'm not going
right.
to bail on this dude who I partnered up with, and then like we finally start building something that gets a little momentum, and then be like, peace, brother, like this is
Yeah,
not
yeah,
your
right.
problem, right? Like so it's like a good problem. I mean, it's just another thing to navigate, really.
Right, right,
But
right.
I'll figure it out. It's another one of those things, though, that I was thinking about just recently. Speaking of like the sailing stuff, where it's just, or like even chasing bubbles, where it's just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna get out there and then do it. And there was like a point where I think Alex was talking about where he was like, well, at some point I went for and he even claims like, oh, I'm the worst sailor to sail around the world. But dude, obviously, like he's sailing around the world. He knows how to sail.
Yeah.
He knows what
well,
he's
he,
doing a
he
little bit.
definitely learned it. Wow. He
Yeah,
learned by doing.
Yeah, learned by doing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But then like sometimes I had like this horrible. Well, I thought it was a funny interaction, where like somebody had asked a question in this like public forum kind of thing, and I like reached out and was like, hey, like this is like I run this small consultancy. Like doing the thing you're talking about. This is the thing that I would recommend. And, kind of like your old salts kind of statement. Like I get the message back, like in what world do you think you're qualified to be doing, doing the thing you're doing, to be like running security programs for startups or whatever. And I was just like, I don't know, dog, the fact that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like that's the only answer I got,
There you go.
where it's just like, well, how do you, like, it's funny to me is still like when bridge operators call you captain or whatever, where I'm like, I'm not captain, dog. I'm just a goofball who like, knows how, like, I'm like, I get the sails up. They're like trimmed 80% of the way there. We're moving. But I'm like, so much of it, I'm just like learning on the fly. Like, where it's just like, you get qualified by doing it, really. Like
You'll earn those stripes.
Yeah.
Totally.
So just kind of funny, but like, yeah, it's like I'd never thought that I'd be like running an okay business, but here we are. And then like, I'll figure out how to work less hours, hopefully.
Well, and as far as like the physicality of that, being able to do that, you guys have Starlink, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, we have Starlink.
How's that working for you?
It works super well.
Yeah. Do you have to have the marine one?
No, we just have like the normal house one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to like toggle the thing on if you're going out into the ocean, like because 10 miles off it'll drop.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just have the normal dish. Being me, I want to get a second dish just for when this one blows up, because I know it's gonna happen. Like have some redundant systems going.
Are you pretty well versed in like all the different setups for Starlink? I assume you must have done quite a bit of research on it.
I mean, I'm kind of a moron. I read like one article where it was just like, okay, this is how you 12-volt convert a Starlink.
Oh,
and then
really?
I bought the 3 things on Amazon. And one of the things that Casper helped me with before he left, because I was like, man, that's like a full electrical closet. Like the electronics.
There's wires everywhere.
And it's clean. I would say this man was
meticulous
about it. He rewired the whole and it is beautiful, but like the thing, he zip tied everything together. And it drives me nuts, which I know you're supposed to zip tie stuff, but I hate zip ties.
They cut you so easily.
They get you. I'm always so nervous trying to snip. Like I'm like, I don't clip this little wire,
Yeah.
But one of the things he helped me with was install Starlink before I got going.
Oh,
so
that's
like
cool.
I bought all this stuff. I was like, dog, I think the only way I can make this work is if we get internet on this boat. So it was there was a storm coming through at that time, probably like 2-3 foot waves, because you get an easterly wind in Biscayne Bay and you're out on those mooring balls in Dinner Key and you're getting hammered.
Right.
So it was choppy. Like the one tear in my chaps on the dinghy was because we pulled up and this, like our actual swim ladder, not the swim platform things that Prout calls swim ladders, but our actual swim ladder came up. The dinghy went under it and it hammered down on it and just tore the chaps. So it was rough out there.
That's when you need like that 50-foot bow line. Get that dinghy away from the boat.
Yeah. But he helped us install that. But yeah, like I don't know, like so much of the stuff that I learned how to do is just like looking stuff up on the internet. I mean, that's like my whole job, basically. It was just
it's
like
the best
learning
reference
it.
ever, man.
You just talk to people who've done it. Like I just looked at an article that was like, "This is how you 12-volt convert it." I just bought all the rights. I bought 2 of everything because I was like, these parts are not. I was
Just
like, I
in
have no
case.
like, it's like lots of 5-star reviews of like, this thing's great, and then lots of 1-star reviews of like, this thing or I'm dead, or like this thing burnt out in a week, because it's
right.
just like random electronics from China.
Well, and the more
yeah.
far-flung sort of islands and stuff you go to, the more self-sufficient you have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons why Sparrow is so low-tech is because obviously, like, if I'm going to spend many months out there, I can't rely on things that have to have, like, tons and tons of backups and stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so you'll probably be thanking yourself somewhere down the line where you're like, oh, we don't have to go and sail for 3 days to get to this town because I've got a spare.
Yeah, well, like in the Bahamas too, right? Right before my buddy Hunter got there, one of the one, it was like the step up converter, I think, died, and Michaela was like, "Now we don't even have internet. Like, what are we gonna do?" And I just like grabbed the router that comes with Starlink. I just like plugged that into our inverter. It was like it's fine. We'll just not run it off 12-volt for a second.
Right.
I was just like, okay, well, because
it
was like panic for a second. I was like, no, wait, hold on, we don't need this thing. I was like, we'll be fine. Like the power
like
gonna fish for a second. Yeah,
like with their sunglasses on their head, being like, "Dude, where are my glasses?"
Yeah.
About it. Well, hey, we're believe it or not, we're already past an hour.
Oh my gosh,
Goes
dude.
by fast, doesn't it?
It does go by fast.
It's crazy.
Any lightning round questions or anything you want to talk about? One sec.
I'd like to talk about your YouTube
Oh,
a little bit.
a little plug.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have
yeah.
a small YouTube channel. It's just called Patrick and Michaela. We've been doing it. It's like almost. Well, it'd be like 9 months or something now.
That's just the sailing, though, right?
That's just the sailing, but we don't have a ton of our like other like older stuff up there, just because it was so bad that we took some of it down.
Oh no, you can't for posterity.
We left the good stuff up. So if you
Nice,
want to go
nice.
see us, it'd be in South Korea or Japan a little bit, or
Oh, very
some of the
cool.
other stuff. But yeah, Michaela does a super good job. I would say like. I like to think that we're just like authentic, down to earth people, figuring it out as we go. The hope is to like to show people that, hey man, you don't have to have grown up sailing to be a sailor. Like no matter what point in your life, you can go out and get out there, and you don't have to have every answer to every problem. Just like you'll figure it out as you go. So I would say like our channel is, I like to think of it as like just pretty authentic. We get some good sailing stuff, a lot of me fixing stuff, because something's always broken. Lots of comments about like you're doing it wrong, which is fun, which is helpful.
I think one of the things is it's what I like about your channel is that it's the reality of it.
Yeah,
it's not
just the good side.
Well,
Yeah,
we went to we zip line down this and like all this like wow, almost Mr. Beast-esque.
Yeah, it's like, hey, watch me throw up across the Gulf Stream to get to the bottom.
Right. It's like, oh man, but you can't. I think substance-wise, you're getting a whole lot more of it. It's not. I mean, although Michaela does a great job with the editing and the voiceovers and all that sort of stuff, it's not overproduced to the point where it's like a fake thing.
Yeah, I would say the content's very real, but the production quality's high.
Yeah, which is like the goal.
Yeah, I
Really?
think. Although, like, I will say, like, I watch a little bit of sailing YouTube. Once you get out there, you're kind of just like, what am I like? I'm out here sailing. I don't really need to watch a lot.
Yeah,
of sailing YouTube.
I follow. It's so funny because I've never followed any of the big channels except for Sam.
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say I've been watching more Sam lately because he's just like out there, out in Africa fixing his spreader.
Yeah, I know, right?
Drilling a hole or whatever, or tapping a hole, and he's like, "This boat will be good." Just like wild stuff that gives you a lot of that same chasing bubbles kind of inspiration.
Yeah,
like, man, I got to get out there.
I like checking in on kind of just where he is and stuff because anytime I can bump into him, it's always good.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy watching these channels like you guys have because I feel like, and then it's so just crazy to be able to then hang out and be like, oh my God, like, because now going forward, like, it'll be like, you'll get a text message from me after you post some video, I'm sure. Where I'm like, dude, what happened there? We got to do another podcast. That sort of thing. And I don't know. It just it's really relatable, and it's also really cool for me to see people breaking into this arena of sailing.
It's fun that like our Thanksgiving was like not calling you out, but it was like a bunch of young people, and then you
old man,
the old soul. Yep. But it's fun to see like the young cruising community get like a little bigger, and you find like find like people close that are your age to hang out. We met Brett and Marissa just because like they were at a public dock in Elizabeth City, and I pulled up in a dinghy with this gigantic bag of laundry, and like I looked at them and they looked at me, and I was kind of just like, so what's your guys' deal? Because they were probably like, I think they were,
you want a boat?
Yeah, they're like, it's hard to like get up the courage just to be like, hey, like, what's up? Let's be friends,
Yeah.
But then, like, at some point, you just kind of, like, get that in you where it's like, I'm just going to start saying hello to everybody. And then we've been buddy boating with them for, like, the last 4 months.
Boats and the whole yachting community is very much like that, where you pull up to marinas, you're in boat yards. I mean, like, I think when I came and just introduced myself, when everybody was standing there, I just kind of walked up. I'm like, hey, everybody, what's going on? And then it's like the first question is like, you on a boat? And then it's like, yeah, I'm on a boat. It's like, ooh, which one? And then the ice is broken.
Yeah.
And, definitely at my age, in my 40s, but even in like late 20s and stuff, as you get older and older, people tend to say that it's harder and harder to make friends.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just the tendency is not to just randomly go up to people.
Yeah.
But we have this one thing in common, sailing.
Where it's just like, you always have stuff to talk about.
The ice is never very thick.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So, well, cool. Well, Patrick,
thanks for having me on, man.
Definitely, no, this was super cool. I'm definitely going to be following along and everything.
Yeah.
I'll put links in the description for the YouTube channel, and then also the Instagram.
Yeah.
Is that one for public?
Yeah, totally. It's just, I think we have 2 right now, Patrick and Michaela, and then also sailing_Talia, Thalia, which is just sailing stuff. And I don't know what we're doing with. It's so hard to figure out what to do with like Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and YouTube, so.
It gets to be a little bit overwhelming. There was one trip in particular where I think I was trying to update via a Garmin InReach.
Yikes.
A Twitter profile. I was sending a thing to my cousin who had my Instagram, and there was also Facebook, and then my parents. And I would do that every morning, and I'm out on the ocean. And I ended up giving up on one. And when I got back, I was like, man, if I'm not enjoying these at least a little, I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. Can't do it.
Happy to, like, it's funny, like, getting me to talk is easy. Getting me to stop talking is hard, So I feel like podcasting is perfect for me because I just never shut up.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I haven't read your book yet, but I bought it on Audible. So we will be checking that out. We'll be checking that out in no time at all. And then, maybe we can chat about it more.
Yeah, man. That's the...
beautiful.
That's the only one I have. I think I promised that one to
oh, it's okay.
Brett.
I'm an Audible person anyway.
Yeah.
Mainly because I'm still a seasick kind of person.
So right.
I'm quick to throw up. Feel good about it. Never bothered me.
Nice. It's all about the attitude.
Yeah. Sometimes, it's just, I think marathon runners call it a reset. Like, they'll just, like, be running so hard, like the ultra-marathon people.
Right.
Yeah, like 100 miles, they'll just be like, and then we're running, vomit, reset, yell reset, and then just keep going. So that's how I feel when I, like,
there you go.
Puke off the back of the boat.
It's like those hardcore partiers in the 90s, man. It's like puke and rally.
Yeah, puke and rally.
Now we can do it again. Give me a beer. All right, Patrick.
Yeah,
Thank you so
such
much.
A pleasure, Jerome.
And
until next time.
Yeah. That's my line.
Oh, sorry.
No.
You got it.
That's all good.